Well, you may have seen it in the aisles at the grocery store, or even walking around your neighborhood. The millennial generation is embracing what they call earnest parenting or gentle parenting. It's all about being soothing and supportive, even when a child may be throwing a temper tantrum. No longer is it because I said so or stop it. Instead, it's about identifying feelings and saying things like, I see that you're frustrated. Let's welcome our panel today. Retired Marine and mental toughness expert Eric Rittmeyer and radio host Dave Glover. So Eric, I'd love to start with you. Let's be frank here. It sounds good, but is it true that we're getting a little too soft on our kids and it's not making them as mentally tough as they should be to be prepared for the world?
Yeah, this is very true. I mean, here's the issue with this, right? We're the society that just unfortunately feels like kids are not supposed to experience pain. And I get it. As a parent, I have two daughters, right? We don't want to see our kids feel any type of physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. But if they're not put in situations where they learn, this is what it feels like to dislike something. This is what it feels like when you disagree with somebody. If we don't put them in positions when they're young enough and teach them the coping mechanisms that they'll need as adults, they're then going to go out into the workforce and say and do things that a 6-year-old would do, and they're going to get fired because of it. There's a balance between the two. We do have to recognize they're emotional creatures, but we also have to recognize that they have to go out and function in society.
I agree with you, and I think you can implement some of these maybe harsher policies in a nice way. So, Dave, is there a generational gap to this conversation? What happened to lift yourself up by the bootstraps and tough love? Is that by the wayside these days?
Yeah. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Eric. Thanks for your service, Eric. So I'm 58, and my mom and dad had me when they were older. So I grew up with legit Depression-era World War II parents. And Jack and Francis were not playing. My dad joined the Navy in World War II when he was 17, did 4 years in the South Pacific, came home angry, evidently at me, and they were tough. They were tough. And I think that we always overcorrect, right? We overcorrect in all ways, and generationally we've overcorrected. I have a 28-year-old son and 18-year-old daughter. I've never touched them. We're good friends. They're great kids, but they would tell you that I was very soft and that they're going to be much harder on my grandkids. So it seems like we're always just kind of, one step forward, 2 steps back generationally.
All right, I hear it. So speaking of feelings, experts say a new trend called delicate dumping is emerging. It's basically taking a step back from a relationship until your partner decides to leave you without ever having a breakup conversation. So between this story and the parenting one, are we getting a little bit too much in our feelings? Are we overthinking things? I can think of a few ways this may go south. Eric, I'll start with you.
This is nuts, Kelly. I mean, what happened here? I mean, I refer to this as the swipe right society, and this is unfortunate. I mean, there are benefits to social media, but unfortunately, as a society, we just been desensitized. If we want a car, we swipe right, we have a car. If we're hungry, we swipe right, we have food. If we want a date, we swipe right, we have a date. But what people don't recognize is that the most fulfilling things in our lives, deep, meaningful relationships, don't allow for swiping right. There's going to be uncomfortable situations. Yes, you're going to be put in circumstances where it's an uncomfortable conversation to have to talk with someone that you're dating. You don't want to be with them anymore. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that you ghost them and just leave them alone and just emotionally wreck them. We have got to learn how to function like adults. We have to get people to understand that we are emotional creatures. Let's not try to stop the emotion. Let's learn to recognize it, number one, then control it, number two. This ghosting stuff is out of control. People don't know how to just do basic communication.
You know what? And I think it's so interesting that you brought up technology. That's a really great point. So, Dave, what do you say?
Yeah, getting out of relationships was never my problem, so it's hard to relate. But yeah, I mean, I've been paying for a gym membership for 6 months for one reason. You have to be in person when you cancel, and I'm too lazy. If I'm going to show up at the gym, I might as well just work out. So yeah, I don't think it should be harder to break up with my personal trainer than a girlfriend.
Hey, you know what? I think that avoidance actually turned out to be a positive for you, Dave, so that's great. So speaking of failing to cut ties, new research shows nearly half of parents with adult children are still paying their children's bills. Eric, is this just the state of the economy, or is this a product of a younger generation having somewhat of a failure to launch here?
Yeah, I don't think this is a failure to launch, Kelly. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps, right? I joined, I was 17. I shipped out when I was 18. I was on my own. I spread my wings. It's all good to go. I think what we have to understand is that there's a medium, there's a way to get our kids, get them educated, get them out there. And I think there's a big difference between full on supporting them and assisting them as they gradually morph into adulthood, especially in the day and time right now where it costs you $5 for a gallon of milk. I think it's totally acceptable to assist our children. The key is, what are they doing? Are they sitting on the couch and we're paying for their bonbons and their cheese pizza? Or are they going out to work and we're just assisting with it? I don't think there's a problem with assisting them, but you do have to cut the cord at some point. I don't think helping them is a problem.
All right, Dave, I'll give you the last word on this one. What do you think? It is a delicate balance.
Yeah, I'll go back to my initial point about the overcorrection. I'm making my mom and dad sound like monsters. They're not. They're good parents. They're just a different generation. When I went to college, I didn't have any money. I tried to take out loans, but my mom and dad had to put their financials in. They didn't trust the government. They said, we're not going to do it. So they gave me zero help. It was just the standard of the day. I didn't think that they were mean or bad. I just had to come up with something. With my kids, again, I probably go too far. I do think it's a different generation. I accept that it's probably a little harder to make it than it was when Eric and I were young. But yeah, we've overcorrected, and I feel bad for my grandkids because they're going to have it rough.
All right, Eric, well, thank you for your service. Eric and Dave, thank you both for being here. A great conversation. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, when we come back, over